1340 96.5 KVGC, and Superintendent Gibson has joined us this morning. And Torie, welcome. Thank you.
Sorry, I was a little bit late.
Yeah. Well, how do you use the crutch on the gas and the brake, or do you use your feet, or how do you do that?
Well, I actually have a walker also that I prefer, but because I was running late, it takes a little longer to get it out of the car, so I used the crutches this morning.
Do you drive with that? Do you use those? Is that how you?
No.
No. Oh,
no.
okay.
No.
Okay.
My right leg's good. It's my left leg.
So while you were while we were heading here, we talked a little bit to Mark about Mark Brewer. Got to know him.
Yeah.
Where he came from. So we're going to throw this at you. You've got 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever it takes. Where was Torie born? Where did she go to school? How did she end up in Amador County?
Sure. So I was born in Bellevue, Washington. Fortunately, actually, I was born with a pretty rare birth defect that had I not been born where I was, I probably wouldn't have lived. They flew me immediately across the river over to Seattle to the Shrine Hospital, of which my parents are very involved with the Shriners. My dad's a Mason. And so I grew up in Red Bluff. When I was about 2, my family all moved back down to Red Bluff, which is where my mom spent most of her life. My one grandfather was a cattle rancher there. My other grandfather was the president of the bank in town. My mom was a school teacher. My dad was a small business owner until a year ago when he finally sold his business and fully retired. I grew up in Red Bluff High School. Went to the JC up there. Unfortunately, had a situation where we lost my brother in a tragic car accident when I was a senior in high school. He had just graduated. So it definitely changed my life path. I'd planned to go away to college at that point in Southern California, and I ended up staying home for a few years with my family. And, everything works out the way it's supposed to, I guess. I ended up at Sacramento State, got my bachelor's degree there, and then I went to Chapman University to get my master's degree, went back to Sac State to get all of my administrative work done, took a little bit of a break, and then I had a mentor who said, you need to go get your doctorate degree. Like, just get it over with. Time goes by regardless. You may as well just get it done. So I did. Went to University of Laverne. Probably one of the best decisions I made other than the price tag. Wonderful program. I've been in school administration. Oh, gosh. I think this is my 24th year. My 9th year as a superintendent.
So growing up, did you always want to be a teacher because your mom, or did you want to be a banker or a cattle?
No, I actually wanted to be an eye
rancher?
doctor.
An eye doctor?
Yes.
Really?
I started working for my dad when I was 11.
Okay.
I'd go in with him, actually probably even younger than that. I'd go in every Saturday morning and I'd clean off all the glass. If you go into any eyeglass shop, right, there's glass everywhere, let alone the frames and the lenses and all that. So I'd go in, he'd pay me cash, of course, because, we're talking about the 80s.
Yeah.
And I'd wipe everything down, and he'd pay me cash. And so I just slowly learned the business. As soon as I turned 18, I took my state boards test.
Really?
So I was a licensed optician at 18, which is what I did all through college. I worked for eye doctors in Sacramento, a large eye doctor, eye place in Sacramento. I really, really wanted to go be an eye doctor. That was my goal. And then I volunteered. We were basically guaranteed an A from our professor in my psychology class if we volunteered for this program that was working with inner city youth. So I went to Hiram Johnson High School once a week, and I spent 90 minutes with a group of kids that were trying to get out of the gang world. And I did a lot of gang mediations, and I just fell in love with it.
I think Mark and I both buy our glasses at the same. You go to the same optometrist I do, huh?
I think so.
CVS.
No, a little bit higher than that. So when the job, when they flew the job for Amador County, what appealed? Why did you apply for it?
I really wanted to get back. I started my career as a high school counselor, worked my way backwards just by chance. I eventually became a vice principal at the high school level. I was a vice principal at junior high, principal at the elementary level. I loved all three, but I really did miss the high school world. I love the sports and the activities in the ASB world with high school kids. And I never wanted to be in a district that was more than maybe 6,000 or 7,000 students. I feel like then it's just a lot of red tape. I do a lot of red tape now as it is, and we're still pretty small. But I have a lot of hands-on with our principals and a lot of mentoring and coaching that I get to do with adults that I really enjoy. So I can get to a deeper level in a district about this size. I grew up, Red Bluff's very similar in nature to Amador, so I understand, the small town piece of it. We are in Red Bluff. It's a one high school town, and everything revolves around that school. And so I really could relate to the needs here.
Were you familiar with Amador County before you took the job?
Somewhat, yeah. My family, they enjoy going up to Angels Camp to golf and go to Murphy's, and so we'd always stop through here across the street, actually, for breakfast on our way through town over across the way there. No, actually. Oh gosh, I forgot the name of it. Right over here.
Oh, Rosebuds.
Rosebuds. Thank you. Yeah. So we'd always stop in Rosebuds, and
both fine places.
Yes.
Both fine establishments.
I spend a lot of time at Mel's now. I was actually there yesterday for breakfast. So. But yeah, and it's just one of those moments where when the stars align, it's a good fit. So
kind of what you said too, huh, Mark?
Yeah, similar.
Kind of
it's
what you
just
said.
the same kind of story.
Yeah. So I just want to get something clear here before we go any further. So you weren't hired to consolidate these schools. When you got here, don't let me put words in your mouth.
Okay.
Because I don't want to ask and answer the question.
Okay.
When you got here, that was already on the superintendent's desk.
It was and it wasn't. It was something that was discussed.
So you didn't get here the very first day and go, "I'm going to consolidate these schools. That's my.
No.
I'm going to throw my life into turmoil for the rest of
next
5 years."
I mean, I joke all the time about had I really thought that the board was going to want to consolidate schools, I don't know that I would have applied here for the reason that I've already done it once before. And I think it's easy as a leader to do something that needs to be done when you haven't done it and you haven't experienced the painful side of it. But once you've experienced it, sometimes it's a little harder to convince yourself to do it again. It was a discussion topic with the board at the time of my interview. It was something that was discussed often. I had a line of people out my door often to meet with me privately to talk to me about consolidation and the need for that.
So, Torie, explain, because I don't think a lot of people understand this. You don't run the board.
No.
You work at the pleasure of the board.
Correct.
The board can hire and fire you
tomorrow
whenever they want.
Yes, that is correct.
If you came in and did something they didn't want, they would say, "Hey, whoa, we don't want this."
Correct.
Back it up.
Yes, correct. So I take direction from the board. The rest of our staff take direction from me.
Right. As it does in any organization like that.
Correct. So I'm the only employee of the board.
Right.
Every other employee is my employee. So the board gives me direction. They give me my marching orders, and away we go, good or bad.
So let's talk about the bond, because I'm still hearing it today, and I think we heard it a couple of times at the board meeting, even last time. It was not a vote for consolidation.
Correct.
The decision to consolidate had already been made, voted on by the board.
Correct.
And this was for funding for
so there was a
facilities.
There was a method to our madness. So the master facilities plan, it's called the FUMP, FUMP, because we love acronyms in education. Facilities Utilization Master Plan. That was completed late January or early February of 2022. So I was hired July 1 of 21. So 6 months in, Mr. Critchfield brought me that plan, and we went through it. And it has hundreds of millions of dollars of need. And at that point, I looked at him and said, how are we going to do this? Because there is no funding for facilities any longer through the state. Districts are really dependent on the community to support their facilities. And so we had the conversation about, possibly going back out for another bond. The problem is when you go out for a bond, every dollar you're going to spend on that bond has to be listed in the plan. And so it was a matter of timing of, well, if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. So if we're going to go out and ask for a bond, we need to actually have the facilities that are going to be part of what we're going to be doing. The maximum we could get through the bond was about $70 million. And we had like $160 million in need. So 2 of our school sites, by doing consolidation, it wipes out a huge chunk of that need, financial need. And so we couldn't go out for a bond, say, oh, we're just going to do our regular schools and do what we need to do, roofing and, the basics.
Right.
And then switch it midway through, which then that would have been deceitful to the community had we done that. And legally, we probably could have done it, but it's just not my style. So we opted to kind of wrap it into one package so that we could really demonstrate the facilities that our students deserve and that we need to have here.
So if the board, just a question to both of you. So if the board at their next meeting said, we've decided that we don't want to consolidate, stop it.
Yep, then we stop.
What would you do? What would you do, Mark? Well, what happened to Mark? Would Mark
I'd
go away?
No, Mark will never go away. Mark is stuck here with us forever. I would have to then make it very clear to the board. My job is to educate them, so
Right.
I would want to make sure that they understood the ramification of that. But at the end of the day, if they vote to stop consolidation, then we stop, and then we regroup. We take a breath, we take 2 steps back, and we regroup.
You'll always see, for those that have looked at agendas, there'll be an agenda, and then there's usually, it's say, staff recommendation. What staff recommends the board, like with the board of supervisors, you see it all the time.
Yeah.
So your staff, you, Jared, everyone else, Mark, would say, here's what we suggest, staff recommendation, and then the board takes that, and that's how they make their decisions, right?
Correct.
And they don't meet beforehand amongst themselves because again, I don't think a lot of people understand that. The discussions of this up there is the first time they discuss this together.
Correct.
As a group. They
Correct.
don't
So
meet behind closed doors.
no
to
more
do
than
this.
2 board members can
Yeah.
discuss an item on the agenda prior to a board meeting.
Were you surprised at the board meeting 2 meetings ago when this had all been voted on and then it was brought up? Hey, wait a second, we didn't understand what we didn't know this was for real. Wait a second, and then the board kind of flip flopped because the board had given direction to
Correct.
go, because you always, if you ever watch the videos or listen, you'll hear you say, well, what is the board, how do you want me to proceed? What do you want to do? And
Correct.
were you surprised with that? Because I was a bit surprised.
Yeah, a little bit. I think the hard part for the board is we've had this lull with the EIR. That impact study, it takes months and months and months. And so I think people are getting antsy and getting anxious.
It's kind of the back burner now. It's not right up front.
Yeah, to where everything else we've been doing is there's something constantly happening. So in the meantime, we planned it out. So while the EIR and traffic study and all these components of things that we need to do are being finalized, we decided then, okay, this is the perfect timing for us to go forward and start looking at name, mascot, all of those things, which is where we are currently. In the next probably 48 to 72 hours, we're going to be releasing a series of documents to the whole community, just as kind of a reminder as to where we've come from since May of 2022. I think it's really important for people to see that we haven't been hiding things, we haven't been making decisions. We literally have just been sitting quietly waiting for that EIR to be done, which we now have a special board meeting planned for December 14th. Yes,
Yeah. So do you have the EIR?
I do not. I've not seen it.
But the draft has been completed?
It's not completed
It's not
yet.
completed yet. Okay. And I saw the mysterious Jackson letter. Why was that such a big issue?
So we have multiple letters like
Yeah,
that. I
and
mean,
it's not
they
that
come from
bad.
all the different agencies. So what happens is in an EIR, they go out, they do this request for information from multiple people, multiple agencies across the county. And then I think one of the gentlemen who spoke the other night, Shin Green, he said it perfectly off the record when he and I were talking. And he said, basically in an EIR, they take it, he goes, it's kind of like eating sausage.
Now, wait a second. Are you going to share something he said off the record on the record now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care?
No.
Okay.
Oh, no. This is
Okay.
this is a perfect analogy of EIR.
Okay.
He's like, it's kind of like eating sausage. He said, you love it once you get it and you get to eat it, but you don't want to know what goes into making it. And he said, basically, they pull all these different things from all these different places, and one may impact another by the requests that they're making or the demands they're making. And so they have to go and analyze all that. So that's why there's these time frames for people to submit that. They submit it, then they go and kind of regurgitate all the information and figure out what needs to happen. So in that report, that's what's going to be showing is all these letters, all these functions that have happened, and then they go out and tell us this is what you do and don't have to do.
And a lot of this, I would assume, we've approved a traffic circle on Hoffman to go down to Sutter. That will help. Someday, I know there was a lot of talk about just, extend Wicklow Way right through.
Correct.
Well, there's people own that property there. That's not, people think the county owns it. It's not all county-owned property.
Right.
There's some personal property there. It's not as easy as you think. And, sometimes, like you said, the mitigation is worse than the problem.
Yes, it is. So and I think what people forget too is we clearly understand traffic is an issue, but traffic is an issue at every school site. I've worked at, I don't know, I'm going to just take a stab at it. I've probably worked at 12 schools in my career, everything from 300 kids to 5,500 kids. And traffic is a problem everywhere. Like, unless you have some perfect bypass system in and out of a school site, I don't know any school. Mr. Brewer, do you know any school that does? I mean, it's the life of schools. The ingress, egress is never perfect. It's always a bit of a mess. And so we fully understand that. I think what people forget, we're also relieving traffic from Jackson Junior High, which is extremely close to the current Argonaut campus. We also have other mitigations that we are planning to put into place. I really feel like a lot of the answers we continue to give, people just don't want necessarily to hear the answers, because we do have answers to a lot of it. Not to everything, of course, it's not possible. But there are a lot of things we have thought through, talked through it, come up with a plan. We hear the community, we hear their concerns, and we are working on all of those mitigation measures.
So what do you say to the people that say, let's back off, let's step back and think about this for a year or two. You guys have rushed this through. Do you really think it's rushed through? It's been rushed through?
So they started this process in 2013. So here we are 10 years later. If they had completed the process in 2015 and moved forward, these facilities would have been done, and they would have cost us probably a third of what they do.
And that's, Mark and I were talking about that.
The longer we wait.
Off air.
Yeah, earlier.
The longer we wait, the more expensive facilities are going to become. So that $20 million gym that we have planned will cost us $30 million probably in 3 years. And so I don't think there's ever a good time to consolidate. I think it's one of those situations where sometimes you have to rip off the Band-Aid and move forward so that kids especially can see and feel the positive impact of consolidation.
So let me ask you this. Mark and I got into this just a little bit off air before you got here. So if consolidation doesn't go through, is the district still in trouble with facilities?
100%. We will be in dire straits. If the board were to do that, I would probably contact FCMAT. FCMAT is a state level agency. I actually sit on the state board for that particular entity, and I would have them come out and do a full facilities analysis. We have a couple campuses right now that are probably condemnable by law.
I would, everybody always talks about Ione Elementary.
Yes.
And Jackson Elementary would be about the same age as Ione would be. We have that new building that was put onto it, but those are
and we just
70 years old.
The hard part is our current board. I mean, they're in a really tough predicament, just like I am, in the sense that we inherited 40 and 50 years of lack of any attention to our facilities. There's a lot of other things that look much more appealing to spend our money on than roofs. Let's be real about that. Or infrastructure, right? Who wants to put millions of dollars in a gas line? Nobody can see that. But the problem is when you don't, and you don't have that focus, this is what happens, is then we get so far behind, which is why school districts, are supposed to be putting money aside every year. We're supposed to be doing regular routine maintenance and all of those functions that I can bring Mr. Critchfield to talk to you about sometime, because that's his baby.
So where we stand right now is there's information that is it going out today?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I think
It's
that's
gonna
what we
go
decided, tomorrow.
to the community and the students
And all staff, yep.
and all staff, and again, and there's instead of giving people a choice like you did last time, now there are 2 choices on there.
2 set choices.
Two set choices.
Yes. So Thunder Ridge Mountain Lions is one, and Amador County Mustangs is the other.
Okay.
And there are very strong feelings for those between the various groups of people.
And when do you just go, there's a reason why, you're letting kids 5th grade through 12. There's a reason why the voting age is 18. When do you just say, I'm sorry, we're moving forward with this? See, this is where I blame, and I told Mark I wouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it, Mark. I blame the school board on this for no leadership, for letting it get this far. We need to say stop. Look, it's going to save us millions of dollars if we do this. I don't know of any child. You guys are in education. Mm-hmm. I'm not. But I don't know of any child that did not learn or get a good education because they didn't like the mascot of their high school or junior high, or it was changed and they just couldn't learn.
True.
Now, things change. I'm an old man, so I'm not with it, but I don't think that's ever happened. Has that ever happened?
No.
Do you know that ever happening?
It wouldn't have that kind of effect. It's a great rallying point to build your school culture and bring students together when you consolidate. So there's a piece of that. But once you're in it and we get that settled, you can build off of that and get a lot of positive momentum, but it won't down the road be a big earth-shattering event if we ever changed again. Once you're in one school and have consolidated, sometimes schools do change over time.
I tell you what this may teach people is that maybe you shouldn't go painting your school colors all up and down. Maybe you should kind of make them neutral colors. So that
a lot of districts are doing that now, where they're doing like taupes and grays and brown and just very, very neutral. Although it's hard though, because our schools have such beautiful murals on them. And I don't think even if we change something that those have to be erased. I think that's what people are fearful of, is that we're going to come in and we're going to just erase all the history. And that is not even remotely close to what we want to do. We actually want to celebrate the history.
Because when this all started, Torie and Mark, it was all about legacy. Legacy was one of the names.
That was a community.
That
was not a Torie or Mark name. That was a community thrown out name.
But we want to honor Ione High School. We want to honor Jackson High School.
Correct.
We want to honor Amador High School. And now that's kind of, I don't know, has that been thrown in the trash heap?
Legacy is off the table, but we do have plans for what's called Legacy Row, which will be a location on the high school campus where we collect all of the old memorabilia that people are willing to donate, and we will display the historical perspective of all of those schools that you just mentioned. I think it's critical.
Because again, I think we've reached that point in this as a businessman looking at this, we've reached that point where it's like, hey, I know, I feel sorry for you, but we're going to save, if you want us to do this, we're going to save millions of dollars by doing this. You're going to cost us millions of dollars by doing that.
And I think
we're going to do this.
I think the other thing that is not commonly
and that is not your choice.
No.
That is not your choice, Torie. That is not your choice, Mark.
No.
That comes from the board.
Correct.
And that comes from the community, because the community is the one that voted those people in. If the community doesn't want it, they can recall them and change the board.
Right.
You guys you just again going at the direction of the board.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I think the other thing too is a lot of people have said, well, we know we're getting this $16 million loan. That's fine. You can stop consolidation, get the loan, and put that money into the schools we currently have. Well, it doesn't work that way, because with the savings of consolidation, that will allow us to make that payment on the loan. Mm-hmm. We can't afford the loan if we don't consolidate. So I don't think a lot of people necessarily have put 2 and 2 together, which I wouldn't expect people to. School finance is extremely complex. It's not we don't have a budget where they say, here's $70 million and you can do whatever you want with every penny. You just have to tell us what you're doing with it. They give us a certain amount of money in general fund, and then they give us all these other pockets of money that are called one-time funds that they tried to get away from 10 years ago, and we're right back to it. And it's all very targeted funding. So if we want to go change something, it's not like our home bank accounts from our paycheck where we can just cut off the cable and go to YouTube TV for cheaper and then have another $100 a month to put over here.
You too, huh?
Well, we won't get into the politics of Dish Network lately, but yes.
No, Direct. I've had it with Direct. I went
Dish
to
isn't
YouTube
much better,
too.
so it's fine.
So let's wrap this all up in a bow. So tomorrow, the community and the students will receive the opportunity to vote on this.
Yes, it'll be a Google survey this time.
Okay.
So one email per. We will collect email addresses. I don't know that we're going to be able to tell if people have multiple emails, but I mean, somebody would have to go in and have 15 or 20 different email addresses to vote multiple times. But it will only allow one vote per email. And the community, they're almost identical surveys. One's a little bit different because we have grade levels. We want to be able to break down the grade level and all that. But they're the same two questions. Name, and it's either Amador County High School Mustangs or it's Thunder Ridge Mountain Lions. And the colors, there's 3 different color palettes. We have samples that will be part of that survey so people can visually see it. That I think also will help a lot.
Okay, gotcha. Now, what about multiple family? If mom and dad share an email address, in the house.
Then they get one. It's
because some
one
people do
per
that.
email.
Okay.
Yeah. So somebody would need to go create. If somebody else wanted to vote, if they're a split family, which happens a lot.
And do the children have their own email addresses?
Yes, down to 5th grade, they all have.
Really?
ACUSD.
Did that happen during COVID, or is that something that's always been?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, I think it was always there, but it's definitely been utilized much more because of COVID. Google Classroom, those functions.
Yeah.
So all the way down to 5th grade are students. So on the student and staff one, you have to have an acusd.org address to respond to that survey. The other survey will allow outside emails.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're going to fly that for how long?
Through Thursday.
Through Thursday. So be looking, folks.
3
tomorrow.
days.
It's coming out tomorrow. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Don't show up at the next board meeting and say you didn't know or I didn't.
We might actually leave it open on through Friday. Now that I think about it, because I need to reach out to the Ledger and see if we can get that QR code on the on the front page of the paper.
Okay.
So that would let us. I mean, we're not in a huge rush. Our board meeting is not until December 13th. So we'll probably actually leave it open through Friday.
Okay, good deal. Mark Brewer, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for the time. I always enjoy being here.
And we talked football, we talked golf, we talked a lot of things before you showed
fun stuff.
And Torie Gibson, Superintendent Gibson, thanks for being with us as well.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up, we're going to check in with Cedric Lute and Tales of the Mother Lode.